what was the line we was talking about? Like former traps disappear, new ones enter. Just basically, you are not ready for what's coming, and nothing is safe. And there's that great bit where they think they see the entrance, and the writer goes to it, and he's walking up to the entrance, and he eventually stops, and he turns back, and they all say, "Do you tell him to stop? Do you tell him to stop? No, who told me to stop?" It's trying to mess up their minds now, which is great.
Oh yeah, they like hallucinate hearing each other. That's right. And this is about where my notes end. So the last thing that I had commented in here was about the time of Ryder's first monologue with the professor, and I'm like, this is just philosophy with a movie attached to it. And that is where my writings end, and I was fully subsumed by this movie. I was captured, and then they were kind of in places. Again, like, part of the thematics of this movie is like, you're in the zone, things don't entirely make sense, you're not sure what you're seeing or hearing is real. And so because I was watching this at like 1 a.m, I wasn't sure either, because I was not willing to rewind to watch the movie. If I'm like, did I just see what I thought I saw? Like, is the continuity of like this path of travel or like these segments of rooms, like, did I just see, this character fall over? Like, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I just thought it was neat. Maybe I'm just a stupid bitch, but like, this is just a cool movie. Again, like, it's not a stuff happening film, but like everything has a purpose. But like, I can't really just describe continuity here. Like, it's like they are traveling through places that are wet, and like
if it sounds like we're going insane,
it's because you kind of will.
Yeah, like the things that happen in this movie, they meet in a bar, they get shot at by the cops or military, and then they enter the zone and they walk a lot, and then they all hallucinate to each other doing
and
something.
things make less and less sense the more you go in here.
But it gets more and more foreboding
and way more existential and philosophical.
And they absolutely start going more and more crazy.
Oh yeah, well, it's like this movie is what, like about 2 hours and 40 minutes, and halfway through is that dream sequence Chris was mentioning, and I made a joke. I joked earlier about the Wizard of Oz, the whole like sepia to color thing. But like now, it is very Wizard of Oz-y because they have that dream sequence. They'll fall asleep, and it's that shot of what looks like snow falling. Which my notes say like, oh, that's apparently like toxic chemicals from the power plant they filmed at falling on the ground. And I'm like, this is just the poppy snow scene from Wizard of Oz, except it's poison.
Also noting that,
and there's a dog.
And then puppy, yeah.
Yeah, Toto.
But also noting that in this dream sequence, we're again going between what could be a dream and what could be reality. We actually lose color again, so it's confusing because it's like, well, the real world outside of the zone is in grayscale, but like things happen that are like, well, this looks like this is in the zone still.
And this is also where Stalker starts to get a lot more talkative because he's been very trapped in his own mind, like every place is a prison, and once they really get into the zone, he comes alive. It's like you find out that like everyone else is kind of like the writer is trying to find purpose, inspiration, and the scientist is seeking meaning. At least we think he is. Meanwhile, for Stalker, it's just, yeah, I have my passion. I know what I'm about. If these guys think they want, I'll show them it. The whole let them believe, let them have a laugh at their passions. Also, I think I have this in my notes. Like once they do wake up, that's when we start to get like into the tunnels and also, or at least the waterfalls, and that's when the professor loses his backpack and he gets freaked out.
Yeah, because there was the quote, right? Because when they're then they reach the underground area, and then they have the dialogue because Stalker and Ryder lose Professor because, yeah, they enter like an underground section, and it's kind of like a sewerish kind of thing because, it's all concrete and rocks and stuff, and like they realize... the professor realized beforehand, oops, I forgot my rucksack. And so Stalker's like, you can't go back. You can never go back because you never, the path is never the same. You're going to get lost, basically. And Ryder and Stalker realize that at some point that the professor is no longer following them. And so they surmise that he had gone back for his rucksack. And so they're like, we have to continue onward. And the Stalker's like, well, here it is, the dry tunnel, which, mind you, is still very wet. And then the Ryder, who is knee deep in water, is like, this isn't dry, this is wet. And then Stalker's like, well, it's a local joke. Normally you have to swim here. And you're dealing with like this rapid flowing water in this little underground room, really claustrophobic and really wet. It's very Tarkovsky pilled.
This guy just loves claustrophobic wet spaces.
And so they continue on, and they end up eventually coming back outside where they started, where they left the professor and his rucksack. They ended up in a place where they already were, and the professor was there, and he was okay.
So I got a question for you guys. I want to know if I was losing it or if you guys thought the same thing. Like, before they lose the professor, they find what looks like the remains of a fire, like a lot of embers and coals, and then they go into the tunnels and lose the professor. When they come back out, they find him, and he's having lunch in front of a fire.
Yes, I have a recollection of this.
Was time shifting around them? Was that the professor's fire after the fact?
Just having a bit of non-linear time. Just we're really delving into it.
I'm not the only one who thought that, right? Okay.
I think. I could also be completely wrong.
I also watched this late at night, so I wasn't sure if I was going insane.
Again, yeah, watching Tarkovsky late at night is the best way to watch Tarkovsky.
Just to completely disorient yourself.
This man understood vibes, and those vibes are uneasiness and existentialism.
This movie has vibes, and the vibes are fantastic.
I'm smoking, I'm drinking, I'm wearing a great overcoat, I haven't slept, I'm Tarkovsky built, I'm mildly damp.
The dampness is critical here.
Someone who has never seen Stalker or Solaris must be thinking we are insane if we bring up dampness.
Well, they will understand. They'll come to understand when they watch Stalker or Solaris. It's that simple. Like, and that's like, I love like the meta thematics of Tarkovsky's films, right? Because we literally sound insane talking about Stalker in the same way that Stalker sounds insane talking about The Zone, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have to experience it yourself to understand.
Well, and it's interesting because he really treats it as this sort of like living being. You know, the zone must be respected. You have to take it seriously.
Stalker deifies the zone. Like, it is something beyond like nominally is beyond human comprehension, but like it's kind of also naturally occurring in a way.
He also treats it like a god, but also not a benevolent god, because you'll see like there's like moments with like the gun and the tank, so he's like, don't do that, don't freak it out, it'll punish us, you know, like Azora, to bring it back to that one.
Oh god,
the zone will rise in the ocean. But no, it's like I keep going back to like this movie as an inverse of Solaris, because you get a lot of world building and a lot of big picture stuff in Solaris of like the different nations, the space program, a lot of setup. And here it's just kind of a lot of things you get secondhand, or you sort of intuit, because it's like we were just talking about the whole time displacement stuff. Like, it's never spelled out. Nothing is spelled out in this movie. It makes total sense as you watch it, but if like, we sound kind of insane describing it to the audience.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a really succinct way of putting it.
Like, it really does feel like the mirror image of that movie, right down to having Solzhenitsyn, instead of being the aloof jerk he was in Solaris, being the, well, very passionate and over the top jerk he is here.
So, reunited with the professor, and time making sense again, I suppose. Our protagonists resume their travel back to an underground area. How do we explain this? It's like the final leg of their journey to get to the room. Because the room is also underground in this wet tunnel system. And again, like, being an underground concrete maze, it lends itself more to the sense of disorientation and becoming lost, right? Because now, instead of it being just like open fields, you have to go room to room and door to door, and, you know, sort of has like the Cube vibes, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
you open the door and like it could be a trap, you know, like.
We mentioned Cube, and not one Canadian is on here. Well, it's also,
yeah, I realized that as I was saying, like the one Cube stan is going to be like, yes, Cube mentioned.
Well, this is also like, at this point in the movie, like, it's when you say it's the last leg. This is like, there's still an hour of movie left when they get to these tunnels. But we also learn a few things at this point. We sort of learn what the room is ever after. It's this space in the center ish of the zone that apparently can grant anyone's wish or like deepest desire somehow.
It grants your deepest desire, and your deepest desires are like things that you just can't really like vocalize. Like you can't really turn that into a coherent thought to tell someone else. It's something that is felt very deeply at the core level of like one's soul. Like it isn't just like a, because it's like if you could speak that your innermost desire to someone else, then it's like a, I don't know, you kind of have like a hand in creating that desire, right? Like it's not just the truth, like a universal truth from the self. It is like a, you had a hand in molding that wish through your id or ego or what have you. Like it would not be true. And so it's like, because I think that is actually like a line of dialogue that some of the character, one of the characters has, is like a, well, if it really was one of my innermost desires, it's like, could I even tell you? Would I even tell you? Like, would I even know? Like,
we also get some important details about Porcupine, the stalker before our stalker. You know, we find out that, you know, he's reached the center of the zone before. He's reached a room, and he also somehow got fabulously wealthy. Like, no one knows how. He just became into a ton of money, and he also like killed himself a week after coming back.
And we learn more about that later, so we'll keep that in the pocket too.
At this point, something isn't right. You know, whatever's in the room will do that, but also no guarantee you'll be happy afterwards. And also, I love is that you can't go back the way you came. Like when we try to find the professor, or they keep like trying to plot their path. It's like, no. We have to keep going, and eventually we'll end up outside the zone once we finish this, but not the way we came.
You just go into a different liminal space each time you proceed.
And we also get just a fantastic, once we get to the tunnels, like bickering moment of like, you go, no, you go, no, you go.
Yeah, it's very apparent by this point that like the zone has made them mad. It's very clear that the zone is playing on their human animalistic emotions. Like everyone is terrified at this point, including the stalker. Like it's powerful beyond human comprehension, and it just affects your emotive state just entirely subconsciously. There's a recurring theme of the writer being voluntold to go first.
I mean, they keep doing that. Like the stalker keeps telling them like, okay, Professor, you go, writer, you go, I'll catch up.
But yeah, in this case, they have to go down the spooky bendy hallway.
Yeah, it's like a giant sewer with like little light holes above it that just have icicles coming down.
Slimicles. It seems kind of more goopy to me. I mean,
yeah, a goo.
But yeah, they draw matches, and the longest goes. And it turns out that the writer pulled the longest stick, and so he has to go first.